Hey, I made you the manager, and this is what I get? Last month, I let it slide because you just took over. But this month's numbers are also down compared to last year. Do you know what happens if your performance is worse for 2 months in a row? Michael, the division head, said this to me. I'm sorry. The new Castle Electronics store opened 2 months ago and it's closer to the station, so we've lost a lot of customers to them. When I explained this, Michael responded, I know that. What's with the excuses? This is why incompetents are useless. The store James is managing is far from the station, which is a disadvantage. Our store is also smaller. And Castle Electronics has been advertising aggressively. Of course, we need to address this as a company. So putting all the responsibility on James is unfair. Daniel, the section chief, came to my aid. But Michael dismissed him. Are you guys trying to pass off your responsibilities onto the company? What's the point of your title and salary? The store's poor performance is entirely the manager's responsibility. It means you're incompetent. I thought, if that's the case, then the overall poor performance of the division is the division head's responsibility, right? But I couldn't say that out loud. Also, our company's salary is quite low, and we have unpaid overtime. Michael's arguments didn't make sense to me because being told to work hard for such low pay was not convincing. Would it be easier if I just accepted it and think that I just need to work harder? Is it wrong for a salaried employee to question their boss? While I was mulling over these thoughts, I heard something shocking. So, James, you don't need to come in tomorrow. You're fired. I couldn't believe my ears for a moment. I could feel the other store managers in the room freezing up as well. As Michael said this, Daniel tried to intervene again. Come on, Michael, that's too much. James understands he needs to improve the numbers, so let's leave it at that. Daniel said, trying to defuse the situation, but Michael replied, What are you talking about, Daniel? I never joke. James is fired as of today. The rest of you, if you don't want the same fate, you better raise your numbers. That's the end of the manager's meeting, and he left the room. I'm James, 35 years old. I'd been with TKD Electronics, a major electronics retail company, for 10 years. Because I graduated only from a technical school, I wasn't hired as a full-time employee and instead worked as a part-timer for a long time. It was only 2 years ago that I finally became a full-time employee. Since my student days, I was an introvert who preferred talking about shared interests with a few friends over socializing with the whole class. I thought I wasn't suited for jobs that required strong communication skills. So I chose to go to a technical school for programming instead of university. I liked working alone on a computer, so after graduation, I looked for jobs in system management and development and found a job posting for my current company. During the interview, I was told it was a hands-on company, so after being hired, I started working as a store staff member. I was told that after gaining experience on the ground, I would be moved to a suitable department. So I expected to work in the store for about a year before moving to a systems department. However, 2 years passed, then 3, and I was still a store staff member. Moreover, there was no sign of being promoted from part-time to full-time employee, and that situation also remained the same for 2. Then 3 years. Despite repeatedly asking my superiors about a transfer during contract renewals, they didn't listen. Hearing this story, one might think I should have changed jobs sooner. But I had a reason for sticking with it for 10 years. My struggle with communication improved because I had to reluctantly deal with customers at the store. In a workplace with intimidating seniors, where sales numbers are everything, you have to use your talking skills to get the customer in front of you to buy the product. There were individual sales targets, and failing to meet them meant getting scolded. Initially, I couldn't sell anything on my own, but with practice, I gradually got better at it in my second and third years. Being able to sell meant my talking skills had improved. Thanks to my job, I could now talk to various types of people, unlike in my private life where I struggled with conversations beyond close friends. I even ran into an old classmate in town who remarked, James, you've become more outgoing. So, I decided to work hard at my job until I could transfer to a system-related department where I excelled. Then, 2 years ago, I finally got promoted to store manager. I should have been happy, especially since I became a full-time employee, but I was also anxious. Initially, I was assigned to a store with good location and easy sales, and both the section chief and division head were reliable mentors. So I worked hard with a sense of purpose. But things went downhill when I was transferred to my current store. The store is far from the station, in a bad location, and a Newcastle electronics store has just opened near the station. As a result, we lost even more customers to them, making it a challenging store for me to manage as the new manager. Despite the challenges, we worked together to try various strategies to boost sales. However, there were limits to what I could do as a store manager. And it was difficult to come up with strategies that could turn things around under such unfavorable conditions. James, it's a tough store, but let's do our best together. Daniel, whom I trusted, always encouraged me, and I motivated myself to work hard every day. The division head, David, was also someone I trusted, like Daniel, but my luck ran out as he was replaced at this critical time. A new division head, Michael, who is 5 years older than me, took over, and suddenly the pressure on me increased dramatically. Other store managers are working hard, so what are you doing? Do you even realize you're in charge of a store? Oh. And I heard you didn't go to college. No wonder you can't hit the numbers. That's why technical school grads are useless. Michael would say this to me at every opportunity. He would say this in front of my juniors, so some of them would sympathize with me, saying, "Michael is really harsh," while others would gossip. Did you know James only went to a technical school? Daniel knew how tough Michael was on me and often encouraged me. However, Michael outranked him, so there were many things Daniel couldn't do to help. I tried to keep myself motivated. However, the numbers at a store with such bad conditions didn't improve quickly. 2 months after being transferred to the current store, I attended the monthly managers' meeting at the head office conference room. Feeling gloomy, thinking this month's sales were far from the target, so I'm probably going to get scolded by the division head. I opened the door to the conference room. I arrived very early, so no one else was there yet. I took my designated seat and waited for the other store managers, Daniel and Michael, to arrive. Once all the store managers and Daniel had arrived, it was time for the meeting to start. Under Michael's leadership, the meeting involved each manager standing up in turn to report their sales and issues, receiving feedback on the spot. When Michael entered the room, everyone stood up quickly, and the meeting began under a tense atmosphere. Each store manager reported their monthly sales in turn. Since we were going in seating order, my turn was last. After listening to everyone else's reports, it was finally my turn. Fully aware that my numbers were nothing to be proud of, I had no choice but to report the facts, so I read out the figures for the month. As soon as I started speaking, Michael shouted, "Hey, I made you the manager, and this is what I get? Last month, I let it slide because you just took over. But this month's numbers are also down compared to last year. Do you know what happens if your performance is worse for 2 months in a row?" Everyone in the room went silent, barely daring to breathe. "I'm sorry. The Newcastle electronics store opened 2 months ago and it's closer to the station, so we've lost a lot of customers to them." When I explained this, Michael responded, "I know that. What's with the excuses? This is why incompetents are useless. The store James is managing is far from the station, which is a disadvantage. Our store is also smaller. And Castle Electronics has been advertising aggressively. Of course, we need to address this as a company. So putting all the responsibility on James is unfair." Daniel came to my aid. But Michael dismissed him. "Are you guys trying to pass off your responsibilities onto the company? What's the point of your title and salary? The store's poor performance is entirely the manager's responsibility. It means you're incompetent." I thought, if that's the case, then the overall poor performance of the division is the division head's responsibility, right? But I couldn't say that out loud. Also, our company's salary is quite low, and we have unpaid overtime. His arguments didn't make sense to me because being told to work hard for such low pay was not convincing. Would it be easier if I just accepted it and think to myself that I just need to work harder? Is it wrong for a salaried employee to question their boss? While I was mulling over these thoughts, I heard something shocking. "So, James, you don't need to come in tomorrow. You're fired." I couldn't believe my ears for a moment. I could feel the other store managers in the room freezing up as well. As Michael said this, Daniel tried to intervene again. Come on, Michael, that's too much. James understands he needs to improve the numbers, so let's leave it at that. As he said, trying to defuse the situation, Michael replied, What are you talking about? I never joke. James is fired as of today. The rest of you, if you don't want the same fate, you better raise your numbers. That's the end of the manager's meeting, and he left the room. Some people looked at me with pity, while others pretended not to notice, but the atmosphere was awful. James, don't worry. I'll talk to Michael later. Everyone knows it's not your fault, Daniel said, patting me on the shoulder. I appreciated the encouragement, but I thought Michael might actually fire me, and there were limits to what Daniel could do. That day, I had to go back to my store and work, but it was hard to keep a positive attitude and smile while serving customers. The next day. It was my day off. The store is open year-round, so we work on a shift basis. On my days off, the assistant manager and other staff handle the store, but as the manager, I always have a mountain of tasks to do. So I often drop by the store even on my days off. However, after the emotional blow from the previous day's managers' meeting, I decided to take a proper break and relax at home. A notification sound from my phone indicated a new message. It was from John, the assistant manager. Checking the message, I saw this. A new manager has arrived at the store today, but I wasn't informed beforehand, and I'm confused. I heard you've resigned, but is that true? Lying down and looking at my phone, I was so shocked that I jumped up and shouted, What, in my empty house? I hurried to call John but then thought he might not be able to talk during work, so I replied via message. I haven't heard anything about that. Can you call me after work? I sent the message to John and immediately called the company. I didn't know who would answer, but it was likely to be Daniel or Michael. Hello, TKD Electronics. Recognizing Michael's voice, I quickly spoke over him. Michael. Were you serious about what you said yesterday? That I'm fired? He laughed. Oh, it's you, James? Did you think I was joking? How naive. You really thought you could stay with those numbers? Someone as useless as you isn't employable anywhere. Go find another part-time job if you can. This can't be happening. I was at a loss. But refusing to be defeated, I quickly thought and said, Michael, please give me another chance. I'll increase sales. Another chance? How long do you need? Your chance is over. I was lenient your first month, wasn't I? But you blew it this month too. Goodbye. You need to sign your resignation papers by tomorrow. It's an order from the division head. He refused to listen and hung up. Realizing it was pointless to argue, I had no choice but to hang up. The next day, still unable to fully believe it, I went to the company. Michael indeed had the resignation papers ready, and I was made to sign them. Daniel, looking apologetic, said quietly, I'm sorry I couldn't protect you, James. This is my failure too. It's not your fault, Daniel. I couldn't deliver either. I replied before packing up my desk and leaving the company. Outside, I looked up at the sky. I had worked so hard for 10 years, never expecting to leave so abruptly. I recalled the previous night. After the store closed at 9 p.m., John called me. I'm sorry for calling late. We just finished closing the store, John said, out of breath. Thanks for calling even though you're busy. When I thanked him, John began to explain just how tough the day had been. When I came in for my late shift, there was a stranger at the register. When I asked Emily who was on the early shift, she said he was the new manager. I was surprised, but I thought it was a sudden personnel change and you hadn't had time to inform me. Then Michael came and said, James has resigned, so follow the new manager's orders. John continued, clearly upset. Then the new manager started changing the store layout, making it difficult for customers and us to find products. After causing a mess, he told us to put everything back the way it was. Now we have to clean up on our own, and we don't know when we'll finish. I was shocked by John's account. That's unbelievable. He just left after making a mess? I asked. Yes, he left after causing chaos, John replied. Then he said we couldn't log overtime and should mark it as leaving on time. When I was stunned, he said, with such poor sales, we can't afford extra labor costs. You understand that as the assistant manager, right? I don't think I can work with this new manager. John lamented. I felt a sense of crisis, realizing things were really going wrong. However, having been fired, I felt helpless, unable to do anything about it. I told John that being fired at the manager's meeting was not my decision, and that he could always talk to me if he had any problems. Life is tough, I muttered to myself, looking up at the sky as an unemployed man. But I couldn't keep dwelling on it forever. I had worked hard for 10 years at TKD Electronics, but the world was bigger than this. With nothing left to lose, I decided it was time to start something new. I shifted my mindset and began thinking about what to do next. Returning home, I calmed down and realized I needed to find a job. I opened my computer and started looking at job sites. Though it had been a while since I last searched for a job, I found the variety of job types had changed a lot since my student days. And it was interesting. I reminisced about my student days when I was looking for jobs in system management and development. Never did I imagine I'd be working in retail for so long. Life is truly unpredictable. As I scrolled through the job listings on the job site, one ad caught my eye. Castle Electronics Corporation. It's TKD Electronics' rival and, arguably, the reason I got fired. If Castle Electronics hadn't opened near my store, our sales wouldn't have dropped so much, and I wouldn't have been scolded by the division head. How interesting fate is. Before I knew it, I found myself applying for a position at Castle Electronics. The next day, I received a call from Castle Electronics' HR department. They scheduled an interview, so at least I wasn't being outright rejected. On the day of the interview, I dressed in a suit, feeling somewhat indifferent, thinking I'd probably be rejected anyway. Sure, having experience in the same industry might help. But TKD Electronics was significantly smaller and less reputable compared to Castle Electronics. I figured the interviewers would probably just look down on me. Castle Electronics is a rapidly growing company, popular among the younger generation. Most of the interviewees were in their 20s. Having worked at TKD Electronics for 10 years, I found myself in my mid-30s, almost 40, facing this harsh reality. The fresh young faces looking to switch jobs after gaining 3 years of experience somewhere else were dazzling. So dazzling that I jokingly thought I should have brought sunglasses. I waited in the hallway for my turn. Next please, I heard, and entered the room. The interviewer was a woman. I introduced myself, bowed, and sat down when she said so. She asked the usual questions about my education, and I answered them. Next, she would undoubtedly ask about my work history and the reason for leaving my last job. I was nervous. Admitting I was fired for poor sales performance as a manager would be the worst possible explanation. Should I lie? No, I had to be honest. While I was contemplating this, the interviewer asked a surprising question. James, what do you value most in life? Caught off guard, I hesitated but replied. Well, I want to do what I'm good at, earn a living from it, and enjoy my life. I realized halfway through and was taken aback. Damn, that wasn't the right answer for an interview. I should have highlighted what I could bring to the company. For example, I could have said that while I didn't hit the sales numbers, I was a trusted team leader. No, that wouldn't have been much of an appeal either. Then the interviewer asked, "What are you good at, James?" This seemed more like a typical interview question. How should I answer? Given my extensive experience in customer service at TKD Electronics and considering this was an interview with Castle Electronics, I decided to highlight my skills in the electronics retail industry. I have achieved top individual sales in my area. I have extensive experience in customer service. Since it wasn't a lie, I answered honestly. The interviewer then asked, "What are you good at or passionate about? Outside of the skills you've developed at work?" After thinking for a while, I replied, "Well, I like programming. I went to a technical school to develop my skills. So I enjoy working on computers and I'm good at programming." She then said, "I see. Thank you for your time today," abruptly ending the interview. I said, "Thank you," and left the room, letting out a sigh. I was sure I had failed. I knew from the start that there was no way I would get the job. But I still went to the interview because I had a tiny bit of hope. I felt completely crushed. My interview felt shorter than the others, almost like I was being dismissed outright. Exhausted, I decided to start job hunting with renewed vigor the next day. I registered with a recruitment agency and set up a meeting. Failures make me stronger. To reflect on my failure at the Castle Electronics interview the previous day, I watched videos and read books about interview techniques. As night fell and I took a break, my phone rang. Seeing an unknown number, I cautiously answered, and a woman's voice said, "This is Jessica from Castle Electronics." I was so surprised that I jumped up from my chair. "Thank you for coming in for an interview yesterday. Regarding the result. So, this company even calls those who didn't make it. What a courteous and nice company. It's really too bad I won't get to work there." As I was lost in thought, the woman continued, "We would like to offer you the position. Can you come in tomorrow?" "Did you say I got the job?" When I instinctively asked for confirmation, the woman on the other end replied in a clear, cheerful voice. "Yes. Can you start working right away? Your annual salary will be $200,000. What? Life is interesting because you never know what will happen. And so, a year passed since that event. I was having dinner after work. I was dining with John, the previous assistant manager from TKD Electronics, and Daniel, who used to be a section chief. "It's been a long time." "I'm glad to see you both doing well," John said after a long time apart. "John, you took over your family's farm, right? You look a bit tanned but healthy." Daniel, who had left the company before John, replied. Both of them had gotten fed up with TKD Electronics' ways and quit shortly after I did. Daniel now works for another major company. That company is none other than Castle Electronics Corporation, where I currently work. You guys are amazing, earning $100,000 a year. Meanwhile, I'm struggling with the hard work on the farm. Well, it's not physically hard since I have the stamina, but this summer's drought made it tough to grow crops. And then the hurricane damaged the vegetables that had grown. But all in all, things are going well. Most importantly, I enjoy the work." John shared his recent experiences. "John, when James invited you to Castle Electronics, you said, 'I'm done with corporate jobs.' That was a bold move. I, on the other hand, immediately said, 'I'm in.' By the way, James isn't just a $100,000 earner, he makes $200,000 a year." Daniel said with a laugh. "That's right." After getting hired at Castle Electronics, I headhunted John and Daniel, who had tough times at TKD Electronics. John declined, but Daniel now works with me as a colleague. I had that authority because Castle Electronics is a meritocracy that values ability over educational background or years of service. "James, you knew the competition was tough when you applied to Castle Electronics, right? What do you think led to your success?" John asked. "I haven't told you this story yet. During the interview, I was sure I'd failed. But then I got a call saying I was hired and started the next day. On my first day, I had time to talk with the president and the interviewer, and I learned an amazing fact. When I answered, John leaned forward and exclaimed, "An amazing fact," eager to hear more. It turns out that Jessica, the woman who interviewed me, was a year ahead of me at the IT technical school I attended. I didn't know her. But I was somewhat famous for my good grades, so she knew of me. Coincidentally, she had bought appliances from me at TKD Electronics and remembered my good customer service. John reacted with excitement, "Wow, that's an incredible coincidence." So, Jessica had a very positive impression of you both in school and as a salesperson. That was essentially correct, but I felt awkward saying, "Yeah, isn't that impressive?" so I stayed silent. Daniel, who knew the full details, stepped in to help. Exactly. And even more surprising, Jessica is the daughter of Castle Electronics president. The president's daughter. So, James, you were highly regarded by her, and that's why the president immediately decided to hire you? When John summarized the situation, Daniel responded, "Exactly. Jessica knew James had high-level IT skills from school and saw how well he handled customers at TKD Electronics. drawing out their needs and explaining products clearly. She also noticed how respected he was as a manager. She thought highly of his professional and personal qualities. She also knew about TKD Electronics' reputation as a tough workplace. So she didn't need to ask why he left. She assumed that if he was let go, it was the company's fault. That's why she offered to consider other talented employees from TKD Electronics if James recommended them, which is how she reached out to us. Daniel explained to John. Daniel, you've also been studying on your own and have high IT skills. But I didn't know Jessica thought so highly of me. When did you two discuss this? Daniel smiled and replied, Jessica likes you a lot, so she often asks me about your time at TKD Electronics. We talk about you a lot. Please don't tell her any weird stories, okay? I said with an embarrassed smile. Of course not. I only tell her good things. Besides, Jessica is so fond of you that if I said anything bad, she'd be mad at me, Daniel said. John chimed in with a grin, so, does that mean the daughter of the president likes you, James? Embarrassed, I stood up and exclaimed, no way. Someone like me, an introverted nobody, being liked by a beautiful and capable woman like Jessica? That's impossible. Daniel laughed and said, James, I didn't know you back in your student days. And maybe you were just a self-proclaimed introvert staring at a computer, but that's not who you are now. You're definitely a capable guy with high customer service and IT skills, and you're a thoughtful person. If I were a woman, I'd be head over heels for you. Even as a man, I admire you a lot as a colleague and friend. I was stunned, having never been spoken to like this, and had no words to respond. John added, I agree. I think you're a very capable guy, James, and I really admire you. When I was the assistant manager, you supported me a lot. Even after you were suddenly fired, you kept in touch and supported me, listening to my complaints about the new manager. Without your support, I might have been crushed under the new manager. I can't thank you enough. Feeling flustered, I said, please stop, trying to hide my embarrassment. But deep down, I felt a warm sense of appreciation. And as an adult, I was almost moved to tears. John, it became clear how competent James was right after he left TKD Electronics. The new manager was overbearing, arrogant, and clueless, causing sales to plummet. This manager was headhunted by Michael to turn things around, so when it failed, Williams, the president of TKD Electronics, blamed Michael, and eventually, Michael was fired. The company's debt ballooned. And with competent employees leaving, bankruptcy seems inevitable. John said this. Yeah, we were lucky to get out before being caught in the fire, right, John? Daniel replied, and John nodded, saying, and now, both of you are utilizing your customer service and store management skills from TKD Electronics, along with your high IT skills, to handle both internal systems and store operations at Castle Electronics. You've become key players in a major company, earning high salaries, and Castle Electronics' performance is soaring. I'm proud of my former senior's success. You're flattering us too much, John. Are you trying to butter us up so we'll treat you to dinner? Daniel joked. Oops, you caught me. John playfully replied, but we had planned to treat him to dinner from the start. Jokes aside, it was clear John genuinely admired and respected us. I have always prided myself on working diligently on whatever task was in front of me. Sometimes, it's unclear if that hard work will pay off, but moments like this show that it can. Relationships built purely on self-interest are fragile and can quickly fall apart. However, trust that has been built over time is much more resilient. Reconnecting with these valued friends is a treasure to me. I looked at the two people in front of me and thought of Jessica. These precious connections. Thank you, I murmured. Excuse me, you always sit next to me, don't you? I spoke to her softly, mindful of the people around us. It was the usual time on the usual subway. Every morning on the first train, she would always sit next to me in my regular spot. I'm sorry, am I bothering you? She started to cry when I asked her. As I hurriedly apologized, she told me an unexpected story. My name is David, 27 years old. I'm about to turn 28 soon, and for the past 4 years, my mother has always asked me if I have a girlfriend around my birthday. Tonight, as I was eating dinner after work, she asked me again, "David, do you have a girlfriend yet? I've been asking you every year, but you've never had one. Stop making excuses about not needing anyone and try harder." She must have been really worried about me not having a girlfriend. Recently, she has been persuading me with a serious tone. I know, but I really haven't met anyone, and besides, I'm so into my work right now that I can't be that proactive. I believe that one day I'll meet my destined one. I should have just agreed with her, but I ended up honestly expressing my thoughts. Naturally, my mother didn't stay quiet. "What are you talking about? You're not getting any younger. If you keep saying that, you'll be 40 or 50 before you know it. Get serious. I won't be around forever, you know." "Sorry, I apologize." I scratched my head and apologized. I've loved reading since I was a kid and have read many kinds of novels, especially romance novels. It's kind of embarrassing for a guy to like romance novels, so when people ask about my hobbies, I just say reading broadly. I'll make a serious effort to find someone. My mother looked very satisfied with my declaration. "I'm glad I've been nagging you for almost 4 years. I'll wait in moderate expectation so I don't get too tired out. I'll do my best." After working a bit, I went to bed early, and the next day, I took the subway to work. Since I get on at the first station, I can always get a seat. Though it's not a designated spot, I always sit in my usual seat. Darn, I'm sleepy. I mumbled to myself, feeling very tired. Work has been busy lately, and I've been taking work home. It's not just me, everyone involved in the project is in the same situation. We all want to make something great, so no one is compromising. Though it's tough, I love and appreciate this environment where everyone shares the same passion for the work. As I was thinking about the tasks ahead at work, I heard a tapping sound. Looking up, I saw a woman walking with a white cane. I thought she would pass by, but she suddenly stopped. I couldn't help but keep my eyes on her. Wondering what was happening, I watched as she gently sat down in the seat next to me. It was fine, but I wondered why she chose the seat next to mine when there were other empty seats. "This is my stop." When the announcement for my stop came, I cracked my neck. I prepared myself for the day ahead with renewed determination. As I stood up, I glanced at the woman with the white cane, who was still seated. I felt it might be rude to stare, but she had a beautiful face and seemed about my age, with a dignified presence. At first, she was just someone who happened to sit next to me, but she continued to sit next to me the next day, and the day after that. And also the day after that. Initially, I didn't think much of it, but gradually, I began to notice. The next day, when I got on the subway again, she appeared. With her white cane tapping, she sat next to me again but stumbled slightly, bumping into me. I'm sorry." "Oh, no, it's fine. Are you okay?" When I spoke to her, she looked embarrassed. "I'm fine. I'm really sorry for stumbling. Don't worry about it. I'm glad you're okay." When I answered her, she said, "Thank you." After that, we didn't have any more conversation. But the next day, and the day after that, and also the day after that, she continued to sit next to me. Even though there were other seats available, why did she always choose the seat next to me? Puzzled, I decided to talk to my mother about it as if it were just casual conversation. "Mom, there's this woman with a white cane who sits next to me on the subway every morning. Even though there are plenty of empty seats." My mother looked puzzled. "That's strange. She can sit wherever she wants, but it is suspicious. Why don't you try sitting somewhere else tomorrow?" "Maybe I will. It's not that I mind, but I'm just curious." "Yes, try sitting in a different seat and see what happens." I agreed with her suggestion and said, "I'll do that." The next morning, I got on the subway as usual but sat in a different seat. I pulled out my planner to check my schedule for the day when I heard the tapping sound again. I looked up from my planner and saw her walking towards me. She approached the seat I usually sat in and seemed about to sit down but stopped abruptly. Then, tapping her cane again, she started walking through the subway car. She stopped right in front of where I was sitting in a different seat. Just as I suspected, she sat down next to me again. Seriously? I thought, but getting up now would seem rude, so I stayed put and continued reading my planner. When I got off at my station, I glanced at her, but she seemed unchanged. I got off the train and went about my day. Really? What do you think is going on? You haven't done anything to her, right? After explaining the day's events to my mother when I got home, she still found it mysterious but concluded that it must not be my fault. Of course not. I've never done anything. At least, not that I can remember. Maybe she sees things differently, though. My mother agreed, seeming to understand. That's true. Even if you think you haven't done anything, it might be different from her perspective. I thought about it again, but I couldn't come up with any explanation. Maybe I'll try sitting in another seat again tomorrow. I guess I shouldn't worry about it. Sorry, I've got some work to finish up tonight. So I might be up late. Could you wake me up if I don't get up? Sure, no problem. Busy, huh? I'll wake you up as usual in the morning. Thanks. I appreciate it. I'll set an alarm, but just in case. After asking my mother, I washed the dishes, took a bath, and went to my room. I had an important meeting the next day. The company I work for, Harris Trading Company, is quite a major player among trading firms. I'm part of a project team led by our manager, James. With final adjustments and meetings, the schedule was really tight, and today had been especially busy. I hope I can get at least 3 hours of sleep. I muttered as I started working on my tasks. The last thing I remembered was it being 2 a.m. Hey, wake up. It's time, David. My mother's voice somehow roused me from sleep. My alarm had apparently stopped at some point, and I was grateful to my past self for asking my mother to wake me. Rubbing my sleepy eyes, I got on the subway to go to work. Usually, I'd be wide awake by the time I got moving, but today I just couldn't wake up. This is bad, I'm so sleepy today. I decided to close my eyes for just a bit, and then I heard the tapping sound again. Suddenly, I felt a strong shake on my shoulder, and I woke up in a panic. Excuse me, are you okay? You usually get off at this station, right? Huh? Oh, yes, I do. As I struggled to comprehend the situation, she spoke to me again. In front of me was the woman who always sat next to me, looking desperate. Please, wake up. Isn't this your stop? Oh. You're right, I need to get off. Thank you. Indeed, the doors had just opened at my usual stop. I quickly thanked her and slipped out before the doors closed. That was really close. I owe her one. As I glanced back at the subway, I saw her smile with relief. That sight gave me a strange feeling, but I started running towards my office. Your proposal is great. Please go ahead and proceed with it. Thank you, I'll do it that way. I concluded the online meeting with a firm statement, and everyone exchanged greetings before ending the call. Au revoir, I said as I disconnected, and cheers erupted from the people around me. That went well. As I slumped into my chair, James patted me on the shoulder. Thank you so much, David. You did a great job. Thank you for all your guidance, James. I stood up and thanked him. And he responded with a smile. No, it was all thanks to the hard work of you and everyone else. James is not only capable at his job but is very respectable as a boss and simply as a person. He's always polite and pleasant, never making a face even when we ask questions. Not having to worry about the boss's mood makes it much easier for us to work. He's helped me out many times. I'm really glad you were the leader of this project. Thank you so much. Let's have a celebration with everyone. I'm happy to hear that. Thanks. Many of our team members have families, so how about a lunch celebration tomorrow? Of course. Right, everyone? Yeah, lunch works better for me too. Thanks a lot. Thanks to you, James, I was able to go home earlier and make my wife happy. Really? That's great to hear. Make sure to take good care of your wife. Yes, thank you. We then cleaned up the conference room and left the office early, even though it was before the end of the workday. It was a thoughtful gesture from James. I gratefully left the office and headed home. On the way, I bought a cake my mother likes. I'm home. Hearing my voice, my mother came to the entrance. She looked a bit surprised to see me. Oh, you're home early. What's the occasion? Our meeting went well, so James, our leader, let us go home early. I handed her the cake box, and she was delighted. Thank you. Let's have some tea. Go wash your hands. You know, it's a mystery how a considerate guy like you doesn't have a girlfriend. I pretended not to hear her last comment and went to wash my hands. While eating cake with my mother at the table, we talked about the woman on the subway. I'm really grateful. Who knows what would have happened if I had missed my stop? That was very kind of her. You should thank her properly if she sits next to you again tomorrow. I agreed firmly with my mother's words. I thought so too, and maybe I could also ask why she always sits next to me. The next day, as usual, I boarded the subway, and the tapping sound signaled her arrival. She sat next to me. After she sat down, I gathered my courage and spoke to her. Excuse me, thank you for yesterday. Thanks to you, I didn't miss my stop and was able to get to work on time. When I spoke to her, she turned towards me and sighed in relief. Really? That's good. I wasn't sure what to do, but you always get off at that station, and you didn't seem like you were going to stand up. I had an important meeting yesterday, so I was really busy and sleep deprived. That must have been tough. Did the meeting go well? Yes, thanks to you, it went great. I'm really grateful. Sorry, I haven't introduced myself yet. My name is David. I work at a trading company in the city. Hearing my introduction, she introduced herself as well. Oh, I'm sorry for not introducing myself earlier. I'm Emily. I'm a painter. People are often surprised that I can paint despite being blind. But I manage. Emily smiled warmly. I was just about to ask that question. People often ask, so I usually explain beforehand. It surprises everyone. As she laughed softly, I felt like I could ask her the question that had been on my mind. This might seem strange to ask, but I've been curious. Why do you always sit next to me? Is there a reason for that? Her face darkened at my question, and I panicked as tears started to fall from her eyes. Oh, I'm really sorry. Are you okay? I didn't mean to offend you. I quickly apologized to her. Even though it was the first station, people were getting on, and those who boarded started giving me suspicious looks. Of course, they must have thought I did something to make her cry. It's okay, really. I'm sorry. There is a reason, but it might sound silly to others. She seemed to be thinking while wiping her tears. Seeing her like that, I made a suggestion. If you don't mind, how about we meet up sometime? I'd like to give you my contact information. I gave her my phone number. She entered it into her phone. I think I've saved it correctly. Is that okay? I confirmed that the number was correct and told her it was fine. At that moment, my station arrived. Well, I need to get off here. I'll be in touch. Thank you. I'll be waiting. When I got home, I told my mother about it over dinner. As expected, she scolded me. What were you thinking, making a girl cry like that? I apologized right away. She seemed to have a reason, but I couldn't really ask her on the subway. So, I suggested meeting up another day. My mother seemed to understand but was still a bit upset. That was a good decision, but make sure you properly apologize to her. Yeah, I'll make sure to apologize. I really am sorry. After dinner, I felt a bit nervous but called her. She answered after about 3 rings. Hello, this is Emily. Hi, it's David. I'm really sorry about this morning. I'm off this Saturday, are you free then? Oh, no need to apologize. I'm free too. Where should we meet? How about the cafe near Prince Street Station? They have great scones. If we catch the 9:45 train, we'll get there just as they open. That sounds wonderful. I love scones. See you at 9:45 then. We made plans to meet on Saturday. Seeing me busy preparing in the morning, my mother smirked. Look at you, all excited. You seem to be putting in a lot of effort just to meet someone. It's nothing like that. Even if she can't see, it's important to be presentable when meeting someone. I'm off. I told my mother and left to catch the 9:45 train. On the subway, I sat in my usual seat, and soon enough, I heard the tapping sound and saw her coming. She was wearing a floral dress and looked even more adorable than usual. My heart skipped a beat. Good morning. Good morning. I've been looking forward to today. Me too. I'm excited for today. As we chatted and laughed, the subway started moving, and after about 10 minutes, we arrived at our stop. I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to assist you properly. What should I do? I asked honestly, and Emily kindly explained what to do. Could you walk half a step ahead and let me hold onto your elbow? Got it. Like this? I walked half a step ahead and offered her my elbow. Feeling her gently place her hand on my arm, I began to walk slowly. Is this pace okay? It's perfect. Thank you. We made our way slowly towards the cafe known for its delicious scones. As we got closer, the delightful smell filled the air. It smells wonderful. It already seems delicious from the aroma. Seeing her excitement made me happy too. Yes, I've been curious about this place for a while and wanted to come. When we entered the cafe, the staff cleared any unnecessary chairs to make it easier for her to navigate and led us to our table. After settling down, I opened the menu. Let me read the menu for you. I read the menu and described the various scones and drinks to her. Everything sounded delicious. I'll have the iced Darjeeling tea and a scone set, please. I'll have the hot milk tea and a chocolate scone. We placed our orders and waited for our food. This is really nice. It's a strange but wonderful coincidence that brought us together. When I said that, Emily smiled warmly. Truly a coincidence. Actually, the reason I always sat next to you is because your cologne is the same as my ex-boyfriend's. Oh, I see. Your ex-boyfriend. I wasn't born blind. I lost my sight in an accident. We were coming back from a trip when it happened. Fortunately, he was only lightly injured. But I lost my sight. Emily's story was quite shocking. She told me she was also 27 and had the accident at 18, during her last year of high school. They had both been excited about going to the same university. And the accident happened during their graduation trip. He felt a lot of responsibility for what happened. I heard him apologizing to my parents many times. It was hard for me. But my family and he supported me as I slowly tried to move forward. But I gently continued where she hesitated. Did he leave? Emily showed a sad expression. Maybe he felt too much guilt. He wrote me a letter in Braille saying he was sorry for not being able to make me happy and for running away. I see. At first, I felt betrayed, but when I calmed down, I realized it was understandable. Understandable? An 18-year-old boy can't bear such a heavy burden. We weren't married, we were just dating. He had dreams of becoming a lawyer. If I were in his position, I might have run away too. Emily took a sip of her Darjeeling tea and smiled, saying it was delicious. I decided I had to manage my life on my own. I had to work hard and become independent. That's incredible. You turned that determination into becoming a successful artist. I tried to imagine myself in her situation, but I couldn't. If it were me, I might have stayed down forever. The thought of suddenly losing my sight was terrifying. I'd like to say I'd become mentally strong, but sitting next to someone because they wear the same cologne as my ex isn't very strong, is it? It's embarrassing to admit I can't forget someone I loved. Emily laughed, but I felt strongly that it wasn't embarrassing, and I expressed it directly. It's not embarrassing at all. Those memories must be really important to you, right? When someone means that much to you, it's not easy to forget them. Drawing on my own limited experiences with love, I spoke earnestly. Though I haven't had many relationships, I do have someone I can't forget. So please, don't feel bad about those feelings. The fact that you always sit next to me because of that cologne shows how precious those memories are. You must have really loved him. If you don't mind, can you tell me more about him? Emily looked surprised at my request. You want to hear about him? Yes, since he was someone you loved so much, he must have been an amazing person. I'd love to hear what he was like, his personality, his appearance, and any memorable stories you have. Understanding my intention, Emily smiled. I see. Well, he was quite charming. Are you sure you want to hear this? Her face had a mischievous and excited expression. She looked more alive than ever. Of course, please tell me. All right then. His name was Michael. He was really handsome, like a prince straight out of a love romance comic. People often said he looked like one of the idols from popular boys groups. Emily mentioned a well-known idol who was indeed very handsome. Wow, he must have been really good looking. You have a beautiful face yourself, so I'm sure you two made a great couple. Complimenting her appearance naturally, I saw her face light up with happiness. Do you really think so? Thank you, that makes me happy. We were childhood friends, lived nearby, and went to the same school from elementary to high school. Our classmates often teased us. I liked him since elementary school, so I was happy about that. We had a close relationship, more than friends but not quite lovers for a long time. What a real-life love romance comic. I was amazed by the story of a youth I couldn't have. That's incredible. It's like a love romance comic. I feel like I'd just be an extra character in a comic. But I would have watched over you two warmly if we were in the same class. You're not an extra character. I'm sure we would have been good friends. Her words made me imagine such a fun high school life. That would have been really enjoyable. Then, at our high school graduation ceremony, Michael confessed to me in front of everyone. It was embarrassing but also wonderful. He said he had liked me for a long time and asked me to go out with him. Wow, that must have been such an exciting moment. I wish I could have seen it. Everyone, including the parents, teachers, and friends, made a big fuss about it. When I said yes, he hugged me right there. It was embarrassing but I was so happy. It's like a drama. Seriously, your boyfriend was the protagonist. I bet he brought you flowers on your dates and special occasions too. As I said that excitedly, Emily's expression turned serious. How did you know that? He really did those things. In that moment, I understood why I didn't have a girlfriend. I realized I needed to be more thoughtful and smooth like that. I mentally noted this as an area for self-improvement. It's impressive that there's a guy who can do something that cool so smoothly. I'll give it a try next time. Emily laughed at my declaration, and we continued talking while enjoying our scones and tea. She shared many memories of Michael, their fights, trips, and more. Listening to her, I found myself genuinely enjoying the stories and laughing along with her. When I checked the time, I was surprised to see that more than 2 hours had passed. This has been really fun. I realized I stopped talking about him over time. My friends and family avoided mentioning him, thinking it would make me sad. They were trying to be considerate of your feelings. But it's hard not to talk about someone you have so many good memories with. Yes, exactly. The accident and its aftermath had turned my memories of him into something sad. But I had so many happy memories too. I'm glad I remembered those. I'm really glad you did. You have such a beautiful expression right now. Really? Then it's thanks to you, David. Thank you so much. We talked for another hour before parting ways. Seeing her so happy made me feel really good. Since then, Emily and I kept in touch regularly via text and phone calls. About 3 months later, she invited me to her art exhibition. I'm holding an exhibition. Would you like to come? She specializes in landscape paintings, depicting the world she saw before her accident. Her paintings, full of sensitivity and emotion, have garnered many fans. I had no idea. Of course, I'll be there. I'm glad. Thank you. I'll be waiting for you. When she told me the date and time, it was on a Sunday, and the venue was easy to find. I promised I would definitely come and headed to the venue on the day. The venue was an art gallery, and the owner, who had always been supportive, provided the space for her. After checking in, I looked for her and saw her surrounded by a group of men and women. I waited until there was a break in the crowd and then approached her. Thank you for inviting me, Emily. My voice reached her, and she smiled. Thank you for coming, David. As she walked over, I handed her a bouquet of flowers. Congratulations! These are for you. She gently accepted the flowers and admired them. Thank you. They smell wonderful. I'm so happy. Oh, would you like to see my new work? Of course. I've been looking forward to seeing your paintings. Guided by Emily, I moved towards her new piece. The painting depicted a boy and a girl in school uniforms from behind, surrounded by the four seasons. The depiction of the seasons was stunning, especially the cherry blossoms in spring and the autumn leaves. It was hard to believe that someone with impaired vision had painted it. As I admired the painting, I finally spoke up. This is amazing. It's so beautiful. It really touches my heart. Are the two in uniforms you and Michael? She nodded yes. Yes, after talking with you, I remembered all the good memories I had with him and expressed the seasons we spent together. Spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Each season holds precious memories that I didn't want to forget. Emily was gently gazing at the painting. Her expression made me think that she was vividly recalling her memories with Michael. We looked at the painting together for a while, but then someone else called out to Emily. Oh, I'm sorry, I need to go. Go ahead. You must be busy. I'll look around and head out on my own. Don't worry about me. Thank you. I'll be in touch. I saw Emily off and then wandered around the gallery to look at other paintings. There were many flower paintings, and each one was truly beautiful. As I thought about bringing my mother, who surprisingly likes looking at paintings, to see the gallery with me, I decided to take one last look at the new piece. But someone else was already there. It was a tall man, wearing his hat low over his face. His profile, as he gazed intently at the painting, reminded me of a certain celebrity. Could it be? My heart started pounding as I quietly observed the man. Seeing him sniffle and shed tears, I was convinced and approached him. Excuse me, are you Michael? He turned towards me, surprised. Yes. That's me, but who are you? Seeing his confusion, I smiled. My name is David. I'm a friend of Emily. Though Michael looked puzzled, I continued without looking directly at him. It's a beautiful painting, isn't it? Emily's new work. She told me the two in uniform are you and her. You two look perfect together. I heard him gasp. The silence stretched on, and just as I thought he wouldn't respond, he spoke in a low voice. Perfect together. If you knew what I did to Emily, you wouldn't say that. I left her when she needed me most. The responsibility was too heavy. And it crushed me. From the corner of my eye, I saw Michael quietly crying. Emily told me about it. She understands why you left. She believes you left because you felt too much responsibility. She thinks it was something that couldn't be helped. Maybe so, but I can't forgive myself. I've never forgotten Emily. Even after we broke up, she was always on my mind. Even though I've become a lawyer and achieved my dream, everything feels empty without her. The deep regret on Michael's face was evident, and I decided to confront him directly. Do you still love Emily? Yes, of course, I still love her. I haven't forgotten about her for a single day. She's always been the only one for me, then and now. Michael, who firmly declared this while facing me, was a truly sincere and wonderful man, even from another guy's perspective. I'm sure they'll be okay. They just took a detour. Thinking this, I felt a pang in my chest but chose to ignore it. At 27, I've gotten good at handling things like this. Well, it'll be fine. Why don't you muster up the courage to talk to Emily? I'm sure she still. As I was about to say that, the sound of a white cane tapping filled the air. I turned around slowly, and there was Emily. Emily, perfect timing. There's someone I'd like you to meet. Ignoring the nervous Michael, I spoke to Emily. Someone you want me to meet? I gestured to Michael to speak up. Gathering his resolve, Michael cleared his throat and spoke. Emily, how have you been? Do you recognize me? It's Michael. His voice trembled as he spoke, and Emily's body shook. Michael? Is it really you? With a trembling arm, she moved her cane rapidly and walked quickly towards him. As Michael took Emily's arm and hugged her, her sobs grew louder. The scene resembled the climax of a romance novel, and my heart swelled with emotion. Not wanting to intrude on their reunion after nearly 10 years, I quietly faded out of the scene. They must have a lot to catch up on. When I got home, my mother greeted me with the same smile she had that morning. So, how was your date? Did you have fun? It was great. I really believe in soulmates now. At first, my mother looked puzzled, but when I told her about Emily and Michael, she started crying. She's quite sentimental. That's a lovely story. I hope Emily and Michael find happiness. After crying so much that she needed a towel, she showed a slightly dissatisfied face. But, I have a feeling you'll still be single at 28. I could only give a wry smile at that. But I wanted her to understand this. Don't worry. I believe my soulmate is out there too. I'll patiently wait to meet her. When I said this confidently, my mother laughed, admitting she was impressed. Maybe you're right. I've never really believed in soulmates, but after hearing about those two, I'm starting to think they might exist. That night, I received a thank you call from Emily for reuniting them. Michael also thanked me over the phone. I didn't do much, just called out because I thought it was him. They were destined to meet again, I'm sure of it. 3 months later, I received a heartfelt thank you note and an invitation to their wedding.